The city of Washington, D.C., was built under the guidance of the Colombian faction of Weishaupt's Illuminati. It was to become the center of governorship for the Order of the New World and became known among the adepts as the New Egypt. The Rothschilds, Habsburgs, Hanovers, and others, who made up the ranks of the Illuminated ones, already controlled Europe, having subverted almost all the monarchies of that continent through the introduction of paper debt and fractional reserve banking. This had enabled the banking dynasties to loan vast sums of ethereal credit to nations which more than effectively accrued an unrepayable debit, due in the real currency of gold or silver. Thus the power brokers were able to move in and seize control of the financial and economic apparatus of the target nations in question. Upon seceding from the British Empire through force of arms, the Founding Fathers were nevertheless themselves not immune to the encroaching and omnipresent influence of the European banking cartels upon their freshly won soil. The War of 1812, financed almost completely by the Rothschilds, was a desperate attempt to bring the disobedient, colonial red-headed stepchild to heel. Behind the scenes, plans had been laid for a new capital to be constructed, based on the ancient esoteric knowledge and magic of old Egypt. Weishaupt's Illuminati had taken many of its guiding principles from the top levels of Freemasonry and had incorporated them into its charter. Thus, a site to be found in the New World which faithfully reflected that of the worship home of the ancient demonic trinity, Osiris, Isis and Horus, of Egypt. A fever-ridden swamp along the banks of the Potomac suited their purposes admirably. Its river course and tributaries closely resembled that of the Nile, and its course southward into the African interior. The land chosen by this river was parcelled into lots and numbered, the city plans having been drawn up by French Masonic designer L'Enfant years before. The positioning of the U.S. town of Alexandria faithfully mirrors its counterpart in Egypt. Later, other towns and monuments celebrating the pervading demons of Egypt would be constructed, such as the Pyramid in Memphis and the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. Today, the city of Washington, District of Columbia, is a veritable mirror of Illuministic endeavor, a city temple meticulously constructed according to the religious rites of Freemasonry. Incorporated into its street design can be seen the Sphinx, the 13-tiered pyramid with the all-seeing eye of Horus, staring down an avenue into the White House. The U.S. Capitol, built upon Lot 666, is shaped into the goat of Baphomet, and sits atop a truncated pyramid. The Washington Monument symbolizes the venerated male organ of Osiris. According to legend, the ancient Antichrist Emperor Nimrod, later deified as Osiris, was hunted down shortly after the flood by one of Noah's sons, Shem, and brought to trial for crimes and abominations committed against Yahweh. Nimrod was tried by an assize of 49 judges in Egypt, and sentenced to death by dismemberment, his 13 body parts carried into the various corners of the known world, and displayed as an example to the world of the consequences of blasphemy and apostasy against the invisible mighty one of Israel. Nimrod's wife, the beautiful witch, Semiramis, resolved to seek out the pieces of her husband's body and found all but the penis, which later became a symbol of veneration and worship by the pagans, as the bringer of life and the ultimate generative principle. Thus phallic worship became a staple of ancient Egyptian religious culture. Nimrod became deified as Osiris, Amun-Ra, his wife Semiramis as Isis, the Earth Mother Goddess. The Jewish leader, Shem, became the wicked god, Seth, forever plaguing the peoples of the earth with restrictive covenants and binding moralities, Levitican law. The Washington Monument is 555 feet in visible height, 6,660 inches. However, tourist guides to the obelisk tell us that 20% of its overall height forms part of the foundations in order to stabilize the monument. Thus, the true height of the obelisk is 666 feet, accurately reflecting the accursed number of the forthcoming Antichrist leader of the New World Order, Lucifer. The numbers 3, 7, 9, 11, 13, 18, 28, 33, 39, 77, and 666 are numbers of the occult. The Washington Beltway is shaped like the skull of Satan, with the little horn of the Antichrist mentioned in the book of Daniel. The mouth of the skull is formed by Gallows Road, the nasal cavity, by Route 66, and the eye to the skull is the CIA headquarters at Langley, Virginia. The total circumference of the Beltway, Route 495, 4 plus 9 plus 5 equals 18, equals 6 times 6 times 6, is 66.6 miles precisely. Arlington Cemetery contains pathways that seem to be randomly shaped. However, if one maps these and shades them in, the face of Isis is clearly seen, and if the pattern is reversed, the child, French, l'enfant of Satan, the Antichrist, becomes visible. Bordering this area is the military headquarters of the New World Order, the Pentagon. Looking down over the Pentagon, if you connect all the points and then draw a circle around it, you have a perfect pentagram. The way the building was configured and the way it is oriented geographically, it is an occult talisman that will draw down power from the North Star, Fubon, the god of war, so it will empower the Pentagon to carry out the policy of war. In the old days, it was called the Department of War. Now it is called the Department of Defense. The Watergate Center is shaped as a reversed JC for Jesus Christ. In satanic circles, the reversal of holiness is unholiness. A little to the east, decorating the frieze of the Department of Agriculture building, is a row of stone swastikas, which stare directly across the avenue at the Jewish Holocaust Memorial. Rock Creek Park is in the shape of a goat. Plainly so. The city of Washington is of course named after the first President of the United States, George Washington. Much is made of George Washington's Masonic connections, yet very little is discussed about his final renouncing of the evils of Freemasonry and his subsequent baptism by a primitive Baptist preacher into the grace and forgiveness of Jesus Christ. The disavowal of Freemasonry by this great leader and patriarch no doubt led to his ultimate demise at the hands of his physicians, who bled him to death in 1797. Other research documents display an intricacy to the artwork contained in the streets that map out mythological scenes from ancient Egypt and the pantheon of the pagan gods. This is clearly not the capital city of the god referred to in the founding documents, but of another, yet to make his final, if futile attempt, to subvert the eternal rule of Jesus Christ, our Saviour. The name of this god is Lucifer, the Shining One, represented by the sun, so faithfully depicted on the Shell Oil logo, 76 Gasoline, United Artists, the Japanese national flag, and countless other seemingly innocuous decorations. The Arco Gasoline symbol is a vertical view of the truncated pyramid, as is the Maltese cross, employed by Adolf Hitler, the royal family of England and many others. One must remember that much thought goes into the construction of corporate, national and religious symbolism. It is certainly not arrived at by chance. Today, Washington, D.C. is a city built in the shape of a 10-mile square. The square is oriented, like a diamond, split into the upper and lower triangles. This is the same shape as the so-named Star of David, which also symbolizes the two-god theology of paganism. It is not hard to see the footprints of Luciferian philosophy down through the epochs of history and their identical, inevitable and self-destructive consequences. Nothing is going to change the results of this behavior in the future.